Human resource planning. It sounds good. You would be surprised how seldom it actually happens. Really, you have to pay attention to what's going on in the market. Too often, things are hitting the fire, so to speak, and human resources is right smack dab in the middle of the next latest crisis. The world is going to end tomorrow. And yes, people will come in, and it sounds like the world has totally changed, but it's just another day, another crisis that you go through. We don't have a lot of time to plan. Planning really involves multiple things. You have to pay attention to what's going on around you in the process. It involves really forecasting, but you can't forecast until you know what's going on the marketplace, what's going on in your marketplace as you're going through. Do you have new competition coming out? And what kind of staffing do they have? Do you want to sit there and meet the new competition with a new product? Do you have the staff for it in sales? Do you have the staff for it in design? Do you have the staff for it on whatever it comes down to? A lot of it is projecting where you're going to be or where you want to be and where you are today. So you're going to pay attention to all the different aspects of it. You have to pay attention to the labor market. You got to see what the demand is out there and what is the supply. This is basic economics, supply and demand, and hitting that magic equilibrium point on the lines back where they meet as you go through. You have to go out and do a forecast. Are you going to have a surplus or a shortage of labor as you're going through? If you're going to have a shortage, what do you plan on doing about it in the process? What is your plan as you go through? You really want to look at a strategic plan, which really should be the driver for all of HR planning as you go through. Strategic is typically 3 years and out. And then you have tactical planning, which is 1 to 3 years, where you grab the strategic plan and you start translating it into actual functional plans over the next 1 to 3 years. And then you have operational plans, 3 different levels of planning: strategic, tactical, and operational. Operational is boots on ground, so to speak, as you go through. It really is a plan for 1 year or less that you're going to go through and execute all the planning you did for strategic and tactical, and you start bringing it to reality. And really, all this planning needs to be based upon forecasting what's going to be out there, where you want to go as a company, where the labor market is out there as you go through in the process. So supply and demand, really the best way to do it is statistical methods as you go through. I like to use a 3-year rolling inventory as you're going through. That way, you look at each year as to what the costs are going to be for labor. Look at the different personnel in each department, where they're at, where you want to go with them. Do you want to increase this area? Do you want to reduce this area, and so on? You really use the statistics as you go through and project your budget, but also your labor supply you're going to have within your organization in the process. Supply and demand, statistical methods to make your decisions as you go through. And that way, if you use good stats for your company, you have a good historical record on which to base upon, and you're not shooting from the hip, so to speak, as you go through. That being said, you always want to sit down there and have good basis to sit down, and you want to have some type of leading indicators to predict your future labor demand as you go through. You have to be careful, because if it's an artificial temporary bump, pay attention. What does that mean? You're going to hire somebody. If they're going to be there for 20 years and you're paying $100,000 a year, that is not a $100,000 investment. That's a 20 years times $100,000 as you go through, or about a $2 million investment in labor as you're going through, plus all the different other things on compensation, which could actually be the benefits and the other costs, up to 42% of that $100,000. Pay attention to what you're doing, big picture wise. Look for the leading indicators, especially based upon projections where you're going on the aspect of your forecast and what your historical trends have been statistically as you go through. A lot of times you're going to use a transitional matrix. As a chief business officer background, I always use a couple things. Number one, I use a 3-year rolling inventory to create a budget. That also means a 3-year rolling inventory of labor. You go through 3 years ago, you see, add up where all the labor is, and then you go through 2 years ago, you add that up, and 3 years ago, 1 year ago, you go back and look at all 3 as you go through, and then you average them out to see where you're at. Look for strange aberrations in the historical trend, but also look at potential projections. Look as to, now you got statistics, look as to where your company is going. So look at the past, look at the future, and that'll help determine the present. Past, future, present as you go through. You create a transitional matrix to show the proportion of employees in different job categories as you go through. You determine the different labor surplus or shortage you're going to have, because that's going to have a big impact on the future that you're going to have as you set goals to match your strategic plan as an organization. Analyze your internal labor, and analyze the labor supply and demand out there as you go through, and then start looking for options. This looks really nice on the screen as you go through. Downsizing, pay reductions, demotions. Listen, you go down this pathway, it is an absolute nightmare for human resources. You go and downsize and lay people off, you will have psychological damage to your employees, and that is actually statistically accurate. Go out and read the data on what it costs downsizing. There is an eternal price to pay for it when somebody sits there on the water cooler and, well, I remember way back then, 3 years ago, when this place over here, who was in charge of human resources? Oh yeah, that guy, that gal, yeah. I remember that people got laid off and I survived it, but man, that was tough. Your name could be ingrained in the memory of people, probably not in a good way. Okay, so that being said, all of these options are really difficult to go through, with the exception probably of natural attrition and early retirement, and we'll talk about those a little bit later. Here's your options to reduce the workforce, and here's your options to sit down there and expand your workforce as you go through. Of all of them, always the best one is overtime. Give people overtime, give the current people extra money to work extra hard as you go through, because as soon as you hire somebody, that hire isn't just for the moment, that hire is long-term. You can even hire a temporary employee on an X number of month contract as you go through, with the idea of laying them off. But keep in mind, the longer they stay, the more emotional and psychological roots they have in your company as you go through. You can outsource it. That's another way of doing it. But then people complain about the fact that you're stealing the work from them as you go through. Of all of them, overtime is always the best solution. That way you avoid a long-term expenditure on labor as you go through. So reconcile the difference between supply and demand for labor. Know the strengths and weaknesses of current employees. Compare the future needs to what is needed for the future as you go through, and then prepare the future human resources that are needed to meet that future that you're projecting in your strategic plan. Take care.